Thank you guys for tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greeting in respect to all time zones in the world, depending on which corner or circle of the world you're at. Also depending on whether you believe the world is square or round, for whoever cares. But anyway, in today's episode, guys, I'll be taking you through how I actually developed my love for writing, where it came from, how it came about, the kind of role that is playing in my life, my mental health, and how it also affects my daily life, and the kind of importance that it's also playing in my life. Yeah, I'll pretty much be doing that. And I know that with the previous few videos that I have recorded, like about 99.9% of them have been strictly freestyle. But I will be doing it a little bit different today, more like a merge of the two, prepared and unprepared. And I'm saying prepared because I want it to be structured so that you guys um, do not get thrown away as I explain ideas that I'll be outlining within the video. And then at the same time, what I'll also be doing is the unprepared part, which is me laying out my story. I mean, if the past was that nice, or where the origin of what is now your purpose was that nice, you do not have to remember anything that you penned down. It's just going to be as natural as I will be laying it out to you guys. Let's get right into it. I will be pulling a slide shortly, so make sure you tune in up until the end of the video. Thanks for tuning in. Firstly, guys, I would like to apologize for any background noises that might be a little bit disruptive. I'm currently at work and they are celebrating somebody else's birthday, which I think is quite cool. Imagine whole entire company celebrating your birthday. Very uplifting. But let's get right into the video. So, guys, you might be asking yourself, why did I title this entire slide Life Orientation? I mean, didn't you do that in primary? Or do we just maybe perceive it as just one of the complex terms about life? Well, the first answer is actually quite correct. We did it in primary school and up until high school, I hope. You know, why did I title it Life Orientation? So in my primary school days, this is actually where the story starts, right? I've always been shy, not as much as, I'm not shy as much as I was back then, because also my job requires the manifestation of my confidence in its fullest. So, and I'm also teaching myself to not be camera shy as much, because sometimes I'm afraid to look at the camera and stuff like that, but it's work in progress, guys, so bear with me. Appreciate that. So, what happened is the lesson was pretty much about staying in school and doing things the conventional way. And the reason behind that, as I crystally remember, is that conventional ways have always worked before. Like, for instance, what has worked for your grandparents is likely to work for you or is gonna work for you. So that was the lesson behind us being taught doing things the conventional way, not taking any risks whatsoever, because it might also mean that we are not guaranteed success in the near future or the future itself. So for some reason, my instinct objected to that. Although I did not vocalize it to my teacher, but I was quite a little bit frowny on the inside to say if all of us are made in God's image, some are creative, some are not, but they are specialties in their own gifts or endeavors. We are all gifted different. And guys, I will actually pull up a scripture in the video, but I also have it written down. I will pull it up for those that can't maybe hear me. So it's Exodus 35, verse 35. It reads as follows: He has filled them with all kinds of work as engravers, designers, embroiderers in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, and weavers, all of them skilled workers and designers. I do not want to take that out of proportion and say people who follow conventional ways are completely wrong. What I found wrong by that time And I'm actually getting to the point of custom teachings, right? The point that I'm trying to drive home, or that I was trying to drive home by then, although I was silent about it, and I did not know how to express the idea or the objection itself, right? So by me making observations, I actually should have put this point as the second one, but I guess it will also make sense as I go through each point by point, you know? So I tapped into custom teachings, being okay, go to school, get married, go to school, graduate, you know, you guys know the drill, right? But the problem I found with that is it does not, like that notion or that principle or that teaching, that tradition does not accommodate for people who do not fit in the category, as they are also not meant to follow the common route that most people follow. Not all of us guys are meant to follow the beaten path, like a path that is followed by each and everybody. You know, and I want to tell everybody, I mean, as young as I am, I know there's still a lot of experience to be garnered, right? But I think it's quite evident, even with the age that I'm on right now. I'll leave you guys to think how old I am. So I'm here to tell you guys that it's not always the case that when you follow the conventional way that things are going to work out for you. Remember, before school, before varsity, before anything, we are governed by the Creator, guys. He's the only one that knows our future. So the customary teachings versus what God has instilled in us, like for instance, fruits of the Spirit. You know what I'm saying? The creativity that we are gifted with, the service that we give to other people, and anything that is not within what the world regards as normal or what the world regards as credible actually might sometimes work for us. You know, I don't think anything is guaranteed, guys. Only God has the last say. But the problem I have with the customary teachings, which actually led to the objections that I had in my mind, was the fact that we were being taught that if you follow something which has been credible in history ever before and is also written in the books, then you are guaranteed success. I mean, maybe in other areas of life, but when you think about your own success, do you think you can actually get there with what you are taught? You know, so I was making those observations, and mind you, it was also an open-minded type of observation. I wasn't trying to impose an idea on anybody. I didn't even vocalize it to my teacher that I'm objecting with him. It was simply something that I had consumed and thought to myself, but is this even credible in each and every person's life? I mean, it has worked before, but for the fact that the future is still going, there's still day to day life, we have different abilities, we have different capabilities, we have different gifts, we have different talents. Will this same route work for everybody? So it actually led me to update my beliefs. How did this come about? Um, Updating your beliefs is quite difficult. It's pretty much more like trying to teach a person something and making it sort of like their belief in a way. But I almost did this like an avatar of myself looking from the outside, almost like taking away my old beliefs and trying to instill new ones, which also can be dangerous depending on the intention of updating those beliefs and the severity of them in whichever direction they might go into. So, hence, it's also important, guys, do not take anything at face value. Always try to question things as you possibly can manage, right? So, me coming up with all these sorts of objections, I actually thought to myself, I'm like, okay, if I am made to believe that a certain route is guaranteed to work in my life, then how is it that I cannot define my own way? So and I mean, guys, look, I am not vilifying the importance of following the conventional route, but I am saying it is very wrong to teach someone that the conventional route is the only way that works. Guys, there's actually a scripture that I would like to read which justifies the position that I'm raising to you guys right now. Hold on a minute. I'll also pull up a scripture so that you guys can also see for yourself. And this scripture, guys, ties in with my position of saying Do not always take things at face value. Learn to question them. Have your own mind. Be a free thinker. Be open minded. Right? The scripture reads as follows: and do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. I'll pause right here. Do you guys get why I'm saying it's wrong to take something completely as a belief without having to question it first? You know, here's where the part about updating my beliefs actually became a little bit difficult. Firstly, I had objections in my mind that I couldn't really pen down. I also did not want to cause trouble by sparking up a conversation which would be contrary to what we were being taught in class. Because it would almost mean that I'm probably underestimating my teacher's way of teaching, or maybe even underestimating his presence, which actually wasn't the intention. I mean, as a student, also, I believe that the relationship between a student and the teacher is ongoing learning rather than the other one is always right more than the other all the time. No teacher is perfect, no student is perfect as well. It goes both ways. It's an ongoing psychological and learning process. So, me updating my beliefs, guys, I had to really sometimes even spark up conversation with strangers, not really also like spark up extensive conversations, but conversations such as what inspired you to do this and that. Considering the fact that you are working, why did you decide to have another source of income? And people come up with views that actually contradict what they were taught. Although they are following the same route, but they contradict what they were taught. So, by me collecting all these sorts of things, and this is by means of me observing people's actions, what they tell me, and also their result. Their result also might have been a little bit confusing because you can never know a person's life completely unless you ask them, right? So I couldn't pen down anything that I was collecting by that time. I had to resort to my first favorite subject. Before LO, English is actually my favorite subject. It was and it still is. So I had to now dive into people that were credible within the English literature. My inspirations were Socrates, Plato, William Shakespeare, and Aristotle, right? So I read most of their ideas actually, and I actually thought to myself, okay, if I want to deliver this kind of ideas that have been plaguing my mind for so long, then I have to pretty much almost follow the structure of these credible references within the English literature. So what I did was diving into poems, the kind of messages that they carried. I also dived into their ideas when they talked about love, when they talked about patience, pursuit, success, existence itself. I actually liked and somewhat fell in love with how they delivered all these ideas. And so now I was battling, and this is actually the part where I actually started almost disliking fiction, which is most poetry, more especially back then, right? I was struggling to find the distinction between truth and reality. And you might be asking yourself, okay, but like having had made all those observations that you have already made, couldn't you tell the difference between reality and fantasy? I would say yes and no. Yes, because firstly, I am a mortal human being. I see each and every day as it is. But there's also an element, the no part, there's also an element of mystery to people that we can never, ever, ever know, right? So by me struggling to do that, I actually just decided to pen them down altogether, right? And guys, this is where my expression of ideas on paper became a little bit difficult because sometimes I would struggle to find the right words because I wanted to make the message so perfect that it doesn't even merit any edit whatsoever, either from the reader or from I as the author. Really was the tricky part about this, more especially penning down all these observations that I had made, was that if someone was to ask me, okay, I get all these ideas that you have penned down, all these that you have written down, where do you stand? I would say, guys, I'm actually an advocate of two routes, right? And like I said from the beginning, I am not directly or ultimately vilifying the conventional route or the traditional way of doing things. I'm saying we as a society should be open minded to different ways of pursuit. It's very wrong, guys. It's almost like making it an affirmative statement, telling a child that they are stupid and they will never be smart or achieve anything great in life. Guys, we are poor in some elements in our lives and we are actually smart or productive in others. So the open-mindedness part of it, and the reason why I'm an advocate of the two segments of life, is simply because of this reason, and also the scripture that I have read to you guys saying you should be able to transform your mind, do not conform to the ways of this world, and so on and so on. Right? So the other battle that I had doing this was truth versus fantasy, right? So what I try to do on a daily, or what I'm already used to doing, I observe people, and sometimes even without realizing, I just observe people, non-verbal clues that they do show, and I try to extract the fantasy, which is something that I do not for sure know that is what they're feeling. So I try to extract out the words that they wish to express, but fear that other people might actually judge them. So that is strictly what my writing is based on. And also back to the primary school thing of observing some of my peers' actions versus the thoughts that they express personally to me, saying that they actually do buy the idea, but and for the fact that they do buy the idea, and for some that they do not buy the idea but act according to it, since they do not want to be rejected by the world and stuff like that. So I do observe those kind of things, pen them down, for more especially for people that can't or are afraid of expressing these sorts of ideas, saying I do not believe in this. They are maybe afraid that they might not express themselves quite very well, and that the world might vilify them for what they believe in. So I try to compile all of these things, guys, into what I regard as the nuances or common episodes into our daily lives. The unspoken thoughts that people might actually have. I try to delve into that, sometimes even through conversation, trying to delve into certain questions, addressing them, and so on. So I'm almost like a fictional writer of some sort, although I'm not a fan of fiction. The only part I like about fiction is that it has truth in it. This is why people like buying novels so much, because it's put in a way that it's not direct, but it also relates to reality. There's certain parts of you that relate to the kind of novel that you like. This is why you keep on buying those sorts of novels. It's more like a movie, it's more like a series. You know that it's not real, like the act there is not real, but you also know that this can be real life. That's why it resonates with you and you keep coming back to it, looking for plot twists and stuff like that. About to address the last question. Why choose vintage verse over all other names? So, guys, look, I'm not saying as a person you shouldn't define yourself. It's actually very, very important for the sake of your own identity as a person, your own conduct, your own moral standing, your own thinking, your own beliefs, and the way that you also live on a daily basis. It's good that you define yourself, right? But motho ke motho ka batho. This is actually an African saying. A person is a person through other people, right? So growing up, I had this demeanor about myself, I can say. um, People almost regarding me as like an old person, or an old person trapped in a young body sort of thing. Also how I carried myself. I mean, when I was still in high school, not high school, when I was still in primary, my mom gave me these shoes. They were almost like NES type of shoes, you know, also for the sake of budget and saving money. But they were actually quite nice shoes and quite comfortable, you know. She gave me those shoes. I wore them on a daily basis, going with tie to school and stuff like that. Also, how I carried myself in how I spoke made or rather gave people the impression that I'm probably trying to be someone old, someone professional and stuff like that. But to say the least, I was not trying to imitate anybody. I was simply being myself. And the first name that I was given was DR, meaning doctor, you know. Although I was never like guys, I'm terrified of very very sensitive things, more especially about the human body. So I would never ever ever think I would lean towards the part of being interested within the medical field. I'm very terrified of those things, and respect to anyone that is doing medicine because you gotta really be courageous in your heart to be able to dissect the human body and stuff like that. But to not lose the plot, the reason why I chose vintage first, firstly, I'm someone that likes an affiliation with ancient ideas with the innate belief that they are still working and they will continue to work over time. You know what I'm saying? And also for the fact that I do like hearing views from old people at times. At times, you know. I'm not saying I'm always around old people, guys. I'm still young for that. But the point that I'm trying to drive home here is the reason why I chose vintage versus simply because I'm trying to bring old ideas into the new age and show their relevance altogether and how they can continue working for us as as a collective society. This is why I simply chose vintage verse over all other names. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Catch me on another episode. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button. That will let YouTube know that you actually find value in these videos and that I should keep uploading. Share, comment, and subscribe, guys. See you in the next episode.